into an ice field on a moonless night, on a moonless night, on a moonless night.
It might as well be on the backside of the moon.
An ice field at night on a moonless night, a moonless night, a moonless night, a moonless night.
It might as well be on the backside of the moon. It might as well be on the backside of the moon.
A kind of a similarity that you see, and I'm wondering if you could talk about that.
So I want to talk a little bit about this Titanic incident. This is going to be a little informal video, just a little talk. But the reason why this Titanic event is important to me or something that I want to talk about is because I did a video a few months ago on something similar to this. I've been researching the Titanic for a while now, and I did a video about the titanium trinity where I show how Titanic's story and Titan stories are encoded in the number 22, which is a play on the titanium periodic table, but they're also encoded in the Trinity
They're
story.
a little bit bigger than a 22.
And before we start to go into that video, I'll show that video again on this. In this video, I'll add components of it, maybe break it down a little bit more. But before we do that, I just want you to know that all giant stories, anything gigantic or humongous in a story, and a story is a retelling of stories. Whenever I hear about anything giant or Titan, I know they're talking about the moon.
All giant stories encode the moon, and all Titan stories encode the supermoon.
And when I first saw it, I knew that it was kind of an encode of the sky. It wasn't because I know what the Titanic story encodes. I knew that. I should just say the Titanic story to me is a story about the moon. So when I knew that, when I saw them talking about it in the media again, I knew something was going on moon-wise, or something was being like leveraged storytelling-wise. But now we have a full event where they have 24-hour coverage, and now the people supposedly died. And I knew right off the jump that the 22nd was going to be the day that we learned about this, the resolution or the demise of these characters that are on this submarine. Now, if you're new to my channel, No Original Stories, I like to show or demonstrate how the sky is being replayed in characters in a lot of different stories that we are all familiar with. But I also demonstrate how the movie stars, the cast, are also a part of that storytelling or capturing or personifying of the sky in characters. And this also applies to our history, high story as I like to call it, as we kind of see demonstrated or going on with this kind of event right now today. In this video, I wanted to really just emphasize the concept of the 22, since it's June 22nd, and the relevance for that. I had a video before up that I was taken down recently. I took it down after it was copyright struck. And it's a video about the Titanic times Avengers series, where I compare Avengers and Titanic. The relevance of both of those is any giant or Titan story to me is a retelling of the moon. So you have the Titan Titanic, and then you have the Mad Titan Thanos, which is a personification of the moon.
Bunch of couple ones and a loaded 22 Magnum.
So for context, in this series, we're going to examine the connection between the Infinity Saga and the Titanic story, including the film. And the reason why is because both of these stories are encoding the moon. Thanos is a character who's personifying the supermoon. The Titanic ship was sank because of a supermoon. And the story, the fictional film, is based off the idea of the sun and the moon, where you have Leo the lion or Jack Dawson and Rose, who's playing the moon. In this short, we will focus on the idea of 22, the power of 22, and then also the idea of the Trinity. So besides the referencing of Trinity and Titan stories, we also see the referencing of number 22. From 2:20 a.m. on the clock to 22 being the prime years of the Titan. It's almost as if everyone's in on encoding 22. 22 knots, last seen at 2:20 a.m., 2,200 passengers, 2.2 degrees Celsius. This 22 idea is a pretty big idea in Titan and Trinity stories. And I'm not sure the true relevance of it, but I have a couple ideas. We also see it as mentioned in the recent passing of the Queen or the monarch, and consider that the arcs are shaped, or in the depictions of the arcs, we see them shaped like the moon, also with Viking ships like the moon. So this 22 connection has to do with the idea of the Titan or titanium. On the periodic table, the number for titanium is 22. So you'll hear a lot of references to the movie making $2.2 billion, or Endgame movie is the 22nd Marvel film, and even the real life situation of the Titanic, or the story of it, encodes the 22 idea. It's said that the ship could fit 22 large buses. It's said that there was 2,200 passengers on the ship, even though that was way over what was regulated for the ship to have contained. It was last seen at 2:20 a.m. It is, I think even the longitude, latitude, it was like 22 degrees and north. And then also there's even books. When you see on the cover of books or different things with the Titanic, just look for it. I'm pretty sure you'll see the number 22 right in front of your face, you know. And even the Avengers Endgame, the day it was released, was on April 22nd, 4/22, to let you know that this is an encode, or 22 is important. So, you know, with James Cameron having this current banter that now it's 2022 the year, and he's thinks that now he's not a fan of the Marvel films, where a couple years ago he was congratulating them, and that's going on because it's 2022. So I wouldn't even be surprised if the upcoming Avatar movie has a Titan or a giant at some point in the film. Even there's a singer named Christina Grimmie, and her name is a play on the sun and the moon, or the Christ and the moon. So she's a play on both ideas, and she had a similar fate to Selena, the singer, which is also a play on the moon goddess idea. And one song that she was famous for singing or covering is the song Titanium. And sure enough, she passed away at the age of 22.
So this is the ship they say is unsinkable.
It is unsinkable. I am inevitable.
In the movie Captain America: The Winter Soldier, there's a scene where Nick Fury is talking about the number 22, and it's a play that 3 Titan ships are about to be seen. And as you'll see later on in this video, the real-life Titanic event also encodes 3 Titan ships. Any Titan or giant story, the Trinity aspect will be in there as well, where there might be a Leo the Lion versus a trinity of moon Titans, like in Game of Thrones, for example, the Leo versus the 3 dragons. But it could also be inverse, where there's 3 little stars versus a Titan. And we see something like that in the Avengers Endgame. But he makes this announcement about the number 22. He keeps emphasizing it. And remember, that movie is about characters who were frozen in the ice, 3 Titan ships, and then the titanium arm. So it's encoding all these things.
And then also the idea of the Trinity. So whenever we have a character who's playing the supermoon or the Titan, the only way to make the Titan go away is for Leo to return the sun. So when a character who is Leo the Lion rises up to take down the Titan, that's what the story is encoding. But if the Leo the Lion character doesn't return, a single star alone is not strong enough, but only a trinity of stars is able to actually help take back the night sky or outshine the idea of the supermoon. And we see the inversion of this kind of idea in something like Game of Thrones, where you have the one Leo the Lion kingdom, which is like the villain kind of kingdom in that series, versus the trinity of Titans, which are moon-based, the 3 dragons. And that story also has so many point backs to Titanic. So what does any of this have to do with the idea of Titanic? Well, many people may not have realized that the Titanic is actually a part of a trinity of ships, where the Titanic is one of two other sister ships. You have the Olympia, or the Olympic, and the Britannica, or the Britannic. And these are also ideas are placed in the sky as well, where you have 12 Olympians, 12 Titans, and these are all based on the idea of months or times of year. There's actually a Red Cross nurse, which is a play on the idea or the movements of the sun and the cross, who survived all 3 ship crashes. So the same story is being told even in the fictional films and the real life event, encoding the Trinity. We see this idea of the Trinity also in the discovery of America, where there's 3 ships that came over with Christopher Columbus. There's just also a story about 3 Vikings. There's a lot of different stories about 3 ships. In the movie 2012, the disaster movie, where there was a reset, there was a bunch of different arcs that were used to save humanity, but only 3 of them were to survive to help discover the new world. And similarly, in the Bible, there are a mention of 3 different arcs. You have Noah's, you have Moses, and then also the Ark of the Covenant. It seems like this Trinity is always associated with something related to the moon and our sun. On 9/11, there was a trinity of planes that were hijacked. And I find it interesting that if you look at the alignment of the places that these planes left from, it almost matches the alignment of Orion's belt. And this Trinity idea can be matched with a lot of different historical events, especially in regards to the moon. When a space shuttle goes up, it's a rocket or a space shuttle, and then usually 2 boosters. And if you always pay attention to any moon mission, even in films, there's always going to usually be a trinity. According to Nostradamus' prophecy, more like playbook, the Queen was to pass in 2022. And remember that 22 is a big idea in these kind of stories. So we have the Queen passing, and the prophecy also says that there will be 3 kings that will come to power. So we have the 22, the Monarch or the Moon Arc at risk, and Monarch or Monarch was the name of the company in the Godzilla series. This idea or the relevance of using the Trinity is important because it's a common or one of the most common sky stories. Just like the Titanic movie encodes the sun and the moon, and everyone can relate to it because everyone on a conscious and or subconscious level sees the exchange between the sun and the moon. So when they're personified as characters, it's easy to relate to.
So when I saw that it was going to be, when I saw this event first presented in the news, I automatically knew that it was going to be the 22nd. And I mean, this goes on for a lot of different concepts. As you saw in the 22 video, I pretty much predicted that the James Cameron Avatar movie was going to have a Titan or a giant in it because it was coming out in 2022. And he was starting the banter against the director or against the Avengers movie, saying Marvel movies are not that good, when initially he was originally congratulating them. And I hope this gives you new context on how to think about these films and these stories. Just think about the first Titanic film, how Neil deGrasse Tyson and James Cameron kept going back and forth with the sky being perfect for the movie. It's not because the sky wasn't perfect for the movie. Maybe it wasn't. But it's really because Ron is a character, or Cameron, the word Ron, is a play on a character's name that has to do with the moon. So you see this kind of thing carry over in the conversation where you have Neil in the grass for the sun, Neil deGrasse Tyson, that's what his name translates into, going against the moon, so sun against moon. And that's very much what the Titanic original movie encodes. It encodes the story between the sun and the moon with Leo played by Jack Dawn's son, and Rose, the moon. And the sun sacrificed itself so the moon can go up and down. And this same interaction is even seen in the Captain America movies, where you have Captain America who has a star on his chest battling against Bucky, the Buck Moon, and they both have a dance where they pull each other out of water in different films, but it's a play on the sun and the moon, both pulling each other up and down out of the water every night for the exchange of night and day. So what's the relevance in all of this? Essentially, it's alchemy being used on the public. When the stars are encoded and metals are encoded and periodic table elements are encoded in storytelling, these are stories that affect the whole public. Titanic is a pretty big story, and it's encoding the sky, nature, and alchemical elements in the storytelling to be effective. Everybody has a little hunch in their stomach that something's not quite right with this story, but there's a lot of emotional attachments to it. Like the billionaires being irresponsible. That's something that triggers everybody. Everybody likes a billionaire being irresponsible because it makes them feel okay about themselves. So when you hear an irresponsible billionaire or someone going down there just wasting money for fun and for leisure, it kind of like, oh, well, this kind of deserved to have happened. That's what I hear some people saying. And I'm telling you, all these things are kind of going on so that you can have an emotional tie to it because it's storytelling or storytelling, so to say. And so with this current Titanic event, we just went through a moon phase. If you saw one of my recent videos on the recent Spider-Man movie that came out, the Black Spider-Man, and the Black Spider-Man is the moon-based Spider-Man. And sure enough, the movie came out on a strawberry full moon. And there was even a cheeseburger release from Burger King that matched that look of the strawberry moon because they're leveraging the power of the sky to make sure the stories are effective. So we have this Titanic event happening kind of like in the middle of a moon phase, but we have a super moon coming up July 3rd. And that's kind of around the time of the buck moon. That's actually going to be the buck moon. And if you think these stories aren't encoded in these ideas, consider Captain America's birthday is on July 1st, and Captain America is associated with the buck moon, with Bucky the Moon. I mean, July 1st or 3rd. So he's right there like July 4th, kind of where his birthday's at. But with all this moon activity going on, the supermoon about to pop back up again. And remember, the supermoon is responsible for the original Titanic event. It's said that some icebergs were unleashed because of a supermoon days prior to the event, causing the eventual wreckage or the eventual crash into the icebergs from all caused by a supermoon, so to say. And now we have the supermoon coming up, and there's a Titanic event going on currently. So it kind of is not by coincidence. But if you think this isn't capturing that idea, or these stories aren't capturing that idea, Netflix is releasing the Titanic film again on Netflix on July 1st, right in time for the new supermoon. So that's kind of like my rant on this, why this happened on the 22nd, and how history matches high story. I have a couple more videos on Titanic. I especially have one that's kind of like a parody called Titanic, where you see that all Titan stories, well, since all giant or Titan stories are really about the moon, one of the most common ways to kill the moon is to attack it from the dark side, so usually you'll get attacked to the back of the head, but also to the neck. And you see this kind of story carry over in other giant Titan stories, but it's even encoded in the name of the ship that was pierced at its neck, the Titanic. And that's because all these stories are really a retelling of the same stories, which are about the moon. And similarly, there's a stone encode in all of these stories. All stories involving giants or Titans usually will have a stone encoded. It might not be as obvious, whereas in Jurassic Park, it's the little amber on the mosquito inside of the stone, the Philosopher's Stone that the guy's carrying around, that they extracted the DNA out to bring the dinosaurs back to life. It's a play on old magical stories, but the stone is really encoded in the moon. And you even see something like this in Power Rangers with the stone being thrown down to make the monsters grow, turning into Titans from the moon, from Rita on the moon. So, these are a recurring theme, but these are all really just telling the sky in stories. And the politicians and the stories that come on CNN are all doing the same type of thing.
It was all a dream.